Emma was 30 years old and worked as a nurse at City General Hospital. Her father, John, was 58 and had spent his whole life in construction. Last November he had been on a job site when he slipped off some scaffolding. The fall tore all the ligaments in his right arm. The insurance covered some of the expenses but not nearly enough. Even after surgery and 3 months of therapy his arm was never the same. He couldn't lift more than 20 pounds without pain and couldn't do the repetitive motions his job required. His boss felt sorry for him, but there was no desk job in construction for someone with a damaged arm. Where are you watching from today? Kindly hit like, comment and subscribe to this channel for more. John eventually found part-time work as a security guard at Lincoln Elementary School, earning $8 an hour for about 25 hours a week. Before the accident he had been bringing home nearly $4,000 a month. Now he barely made $800. Emma's mother, Linda, worked part-time at a grocery store, earning another $1,000. Their mortgage alone was $2,200 a month for the 3-bedroom home in Oakwood Heights. 3 months after John started the security job, Emma's parents called a family meeting. That Sunday afternoon, Emma sat at her parents' dining table. Her older sister, Mary, arrived with her husband, David, and their 2 children, 6-year-old Tommy and 4-year-old Emily. Mary, 2 years older than Emma, had always been Linda's favorite. David worked in IT for a big company downtown and earned good money. John sat with his injured arm resting on the table looking uncomfortable. Linda's voice trembled as she began, "We need to talk about the house. We're 3 months behind on the mortgage and the bank sent another letter." Mary sighed heavily. "I wish we could help, but with 2 kids and daycare costs, we just can't spare anything right now." Emma stayed quiet, even though she wanted to point out that David's parents often helped them financially, paying for the kids' private school and even giving them the down payment for their house. But she knew Mary would get defensive. John looked at Emma with tired eyes. "You don't have kids or a husband to support. Your job pays okay. Could you maybe help us for a while?" Emma's stomach tightened. "How much do you need?" she asked. Linda reached over and squeezed her hand. $8,000 a month would cover most of the mortgage. We can handle the utilities and groceries." Emma knew it would be tough, but if she picked up extra shifts she could make it work. "Okay," she said softly. "But just until you get back on your feet, right?" Linda nodded quickly. "Of course, honey. Just until your father finds something better." That was a year ago. Since then, Emma had been working double shifts almost every week. Sometimes 60 or even 70 hours. Her feet hurt constantly and she was always tired. She had canceled her planned vacation in August because her mom needed extra money for house repairs. At first her parents had been grateful. Every month Linda would call to thank her and say what a blessing she was. John would get emotional and promise to pay her back. But after a few months the thank yous stopped. The money became expected. If she was a few days late, Linda would call immediately to ask where it was. Emma drove a 2015 Honda with over 180,000 miles on it. The air conditioning barely worked and a strange rattling sound happened every time she braked. The check engine light had been glowing for 6 months. She wanted to replace it with something newer, but every extra dollar went to her parents. Her 1-bedroom apartment was nothing fancy, but it was hers. Still, she barely spent time there, just enough to sleep and shower before heading back to the hospital. Some days she felt like her life had shrunk down to work, bills, and exhaustion. Other nurses began to notice. "Emma, are you okay?" one of them asked one night while they were restocking supplies. Her supervisor, Janet, even pulled her aside. "You look exhausted. Is everything all right at home? Do you need to talk?" Emma had smiled tiredly and said, "I'm fine. Just need the extra money right now." The truth was she didn't want anyone to know she was quietly carrying her parents' mortgage on her back. What hurt most was seeing Mary at family dinners. Mary and David had just bought a new SUV. David got a promotion and they were talking about putting a pool in their backyard. Mary's social media was full of family trips, expensive date nights, Emily's dance recitals and Tommy's baseball games. Emma was happy for them, at least she told herself she was. But deep down she sometimes wondered what it would feel like not to check her bank account every day before buying groceries. Then Thanksgiving came. Emma had just finished a brutal 16-hour double shift from the day before. Her back ached, her head throbbed, but she was relieved she didn't have to work again until the next afternoon. She decided she would spend the whole evening with her family. Maybe she'd even sleep in her old bedroom. When she pulled into her parents' driveway at 4:30, she noticed several cars already there. Mary's shiny white SUV, David's black sedan, and two others she recognized as belonging to David's parents and his sister. Emma grabbed her bag of clothes and walked to the door. She could hear laughter and voices inside, which made her smile despite her exhaustion. It had been weeks since she'd heard her family this happy. She rang the doorbell instead of using her key. There were guests and she didn't want to just walk in. Linda opened the door, her expression shifting from surprise to something sharper. "Emma, what are you doing here?" she asked. Emma blinked. "It's Thanksgiving, Mom. I always come for Thanksgiving." Linda hesitated. "Well, I thought you were working all night." "You're always working." "I don't work again until tomorrow afternoon," Emma said, stepping inside. "I just finished a double shift. I brought clothes to change into. I figured I'd shower here and spend the evening with everyone." Linda's face tightened, but she didn't say more. Emma followed her into the living room. Mary was sitting with David and the kids, all smiles. David's parents were on the couch, looking relaxed, while his sister Kelly and her husband Dave stood by the window with drinks in hand. "Hey everyone," Emma said, giving a little wave. "Is dinner ready? I'm starving. I haven't eaten since yesterday morning except for some crackers from the vending machine." Linda's tone turned strange. "Well, we were just about to sit down, but there's a problem." Emma glanced toward the dining room and froze. The table was perfectly set. 8 chairs, 8 plates, 8 wine glasses, 8 folded napkins. She quickly counted everyone in the room. Mom, Dad, Mary, David, the 2 kids, David's parents and David's sister and her husband. That was 10 people. Plus Emma made 11. "Where am I supposed to sit?" Emma asked. Linda exchanged a look with John before saying, "Honey, all the seats are taken. We set the table for our guests and didn't think you were coming." Emma stared at her. "Why wouldn't I come? I've never missed Thanksgiving." Mary's voice cut in, dismissive. "You're always working. We figured you'd be stuck at the hospital again." Emma shook her head slowly. "I specifically planned around this. I've been looking forward to being here." Linda's voice went cold. "Well, there's no room at the table now. If you want to eat, you can take a plate to your old room or eat in the kitchen." Emma's chest tightened. "Eat alone? While you all sit in there together?" Mary laughed brightly. "Maybe if you hadn't been so late, your spot wouldn't have been taken. But you're late to everything because of work." Emma felt heat rise in her face. Late? She had just worked 16 hours straight, earning the money that helped pay for this very house. And now she was being told to eat in the kitchen like some afterthought. Then the laughter started, not awkward chuckles but full, genuine laughter. Linda giggled. John shook his head with a grin. David smirked and his parents nodded along, laughing too. Even Kelly and Dave were smiling. Tommy and Emily looked up from their tablets and started giggling because all the adults were. Emma felt a sharp, painful clarity. She wasn't family to them anymore. She was just the person who paid the bills. She picked up her bag and walked toward the door. Nobody stopped her. Nobody said, "Wait, let's fix this." She could already hear Robert asking about the football game and Linda complimenting the table. Outside, the cold air hit her face as she walked to her car. She drove home to her quiet apartment, where there was no food because she'd been planning to eat with her family. She boiled ramen noodles and sat at her tiny kitchen table, staring at the parking lot. The silence was deafening compared to the noise she had just left. She replayed the moment in her head, her mother calling her superfluous, Mary's mocking tone, the laughter. Her phone sat on the counter, screen dark. No messages, no missed calls, nothing. She wondered if they even noticed she had left. At that moment she felt something shift inside her. A seed of a decision that would change everything. Around 7 p.m. the doorbell rang. Emma's heart jumped. Maybe it was her mom or dad coming to apologize. She opened the door and found Mrs. Chin, her 75-year-old neighbor from across the hall. Mrs. Chin was wearing her best dress and holding a covered plate. "Emma dear," she said in her soft, accented English, "I know today is your American Thanksgiving. I made extra turkey and stuffing. Thought maybe you like some?" Emma's throat tightened. "That's so kind of you, Mrs. Chin." "Thank you." Mrs. Chin smiled warmly. "You work so hard at hospital. You need good food, not just those noodle cups I see you buying." She pressed the warm plate into Emma's hands. Emma almost cried right there in the doorway. "You didn't have to do this," she whispered. I wanted to, Mrs. Chen said simply before heading back to her apartment. Emma closed the door and stood there holding the plate. The smell of real Thanksgiving food filled her tiny apartment. That's when the tears came, full uncontrollable sobs. In 5 minutes, a neighbor who owed her nothing had shown her more kindness than her own family had in months. She ate Mrs. Chen's turkey and stuffing, and it was delicious, better than anything she would have had at her parents' table. For the first time in months, Emma slept for 10 straight hours. When she woke up Friday morning, she reached for her phone out of habit. Still no messages from her family. Not even a text from Mary teasing her or checking in. It was like she didn't exist to them. She made coffee, sat at her kitchen table and thought about the past year. About all the double shifts, the cancelled vacation, the old car and the constant exhaustion. She opened her banking app and found the automatic transfers she had set up. $1,000 each month for the mortgage, $300 for utilities. She cancelled them both. Then she typed a short message to her mother. After what happened yesterday, I realize I am really superfluous to this family. Starting today, I am no longer paying for your mortgage or utilities. Do not contact me again. She hit send before she could change her mind. Then she went through her contacts and blocked her mom, her dad, Mary and David. She blocked them on Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp. She didn't want excuses, guilt trips or fake apologies. The moment she finished, she felt lighter, like a heavy weight had been lifted off her shoulders. She made herself a real breakfast. Eggs, toast, bacon. It felt like a small luxury after months of vending machine snacks and reheated leftovers. Later that day she went to the hospital for her shift, but for the first time in a year she wasn't dreading work. It felt like a break from the family drama instead of the other way around. During her lunch break she stopped by her director's office. Mr. Patterson, I need to cut back on my extra shifts starting next month, she said. He looked surprised. Really? You've been taking every double shift for almost a year. Is everything okay? Emma nodded. My family situation has changed. I won't need the extra income anymore. Mr. Patterson leaned back in his chair. If you're sure, I think that's good. You've been working too much. It'll be nice to have you on a normal schedule again. Emma left his office feeling a rush of relief. No more 16-hour days. No more dragging herself home at midnight. That afternoon was one of the best shifts she'd had in months. She had the energy to talk with patients, share jokes with other nurses and actually feel human again. Janet, her supervisor, noticed immediately. You seem different today, she said. Like your old self. Emma smiled. I think I'm finally getting my life back. 2 days later, on Sunday evening, Emma was getting ready for bed when she heard shouting outside her building. She looked out the window and saw her parents standing near their car in the parking lot. John was waving his arms angrily and Linda looked upset. Emma sighed, grabbed her sweater and went downstairs. Emma. Linda called the moment she saw her. We've been trying to call you for 2 days. I blocked your numbers, Emma said calmly. You can't just stop paying the mortgage. John shouted. We're going to lose the house. Emma crossed her arms. You should have thought about that before you told me I was superfluous and made me eat alone on Thanksgiving. John's eyes widened. We were joking. Can't you take a joke? I worked 16 double shifts last month, Emma said, her voice low but firm. Do you even know that? Do you know how many extra hours I worked to pay your bills? They both stared at her silently. You have no idea, do you? She continued. You never asked. You never cared. You just expected the money to show up every month like magic. Linda's eyes filled with tears. Emma, please. We can't afford the house without your help. Then you should have treated me like family instead of an ATM, Emma said, turning toward the building. She walked away, leaving them shouting behind her. When she got upstairs, she felt a strange pride. She had finally stood her ground. About an hour later, her phone rang from an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Emma, Mary's voice snapped through the line. Mom and Dad are crying. What's wrong with you? Nothing's wrong with me, Emma said. I just decided to stop being the family bank. They're going to lose their house because of you. Mary shouted. No, they're going to lose their house because Dad got injured and they can't afford the payments. That's not my responsibility. Of course it's your responsibility. They're family. Mary argued. Emma let out a short laugh. One without humor. Family? You mean like when you made me eat alone in the kitchen on Thanksgiving? Was that family? Mary went silent for a moment. We were just having fun. You're being too sensitive. I cried alone in my apartment that night, Mary. I ate ramen while you all had dinner together. Tell me again how that was fun. Look, Mary said quickly, you need to keep paying the mortgage. Mom is having panic attacks over losing the house. Then maybe you should help them, Emma replied. I can't, Mary snapped. I have 2 kids and a husband. A husband whose parents help you financially, Emma cut in. You could help if you wanted to, you just don't want to. That's not fair. You know what's not fair? Working myself to death for a year while you buy new cars and plan pools. I'm done, Mary. Emma hung up and immediately blocked the number. Over the next few days, calls and messages poured in from distant relatives. Lectures about family duty, guilt trips about what her grandmother would think, even angry texts about being selfish. She blocked every single one. Not one of them offered to help financially. They only wanted her to keep paying. Meanwhile, Emma's life began to change immediately. Without the pressure of constant double shifts, she finally had energy again. She went grocery shopping and bought fresh vegetables, real meat and snacks she actually enjoyed. She cooked proper meals for herself, something she hadn't done in months. She cleaned her apartment from top to bottom, organizing her closets and throwing away old clutter. The space felt lighter, fresher, like a reflection of her own life. She even said yes when Janet invited her to see a movie after work. It was the first social outing she'd had in over a year. The biggest change was in her finances. Her first paycheck after canceling the transfers left her with over $1,800 after paying her own bills. Emma stared at the number in her banking app, hardly believing it. She hadn't seen that much spare money in her account since before her dad's accident. She decided to do something she'd been dreaming about for months: buy a newer car. Her old Honda was falling apart and she was tired of worrying if it would even start each morning. She started browsing dealership websites, comparing prices and mileage. By the end of the week she had found it. A silver 2019 Honda Civic with only 35,000 miles, a clean title and perfect maintenance records. The monthly payment was completely manageable now that she wasn't supporting her parents. At the dealership the salesman ran her credit. You have excellent credit, he said with a smile. We can get you approved today. Emma felt a rush of excitement. For the first time in a long while she was spending money on herself without guilt. Driving off the lot in her new car felt like freedom. The engine purred quietly, the air conditioning worked perfectly, and there were no strange rattles or warning lights. She rolled down the windows and let the wind rush through her hair, smiling the entire drive home. The next day she called in sick, not because she was ill but because she wanted to enjoy her day. She drove around the city, visited a small coffee shop she used to love, and even took herself to lunch. Every moment felt like reclaiming a piece of her life. 3 months later she was sitting in the hospital cafeteria during her break when she saw someone she never expected: her mother. Linda had somehow made it past security and was walking straight toward her table. Emma froze, then set her sandwich down. Linda sat across from her without asking. Emma, please, she began, her voice shaky. The bank sent us a warning letter. We're 3 months behind now. Emma took a sip of water and said flatly, that's not my problem anymore. We're family, Linda insisted, her eyes filling with tears. You can't just abandon us like this. Emma set her water bottle down and looked her mother straight in the eye. Like you abandoned me on Thanksgiving? She asked calmly. Linda flinched but didn't answer. We made a mistake, Linda said quickly. We're sorry, but you can't let us lose our house over one bad evening. Emma's voice was steady. It wasn't one evening. It was a year of being taken for granted, treated like an ATM, and then humiliated in front of guests. You called me superfluous. I didn't mean it, Linda whispered. Yes, you did, Emma replied. And you were right. I was superfluous to your family, but I'm not superfluous to my own life. She stood ready to leave, but Linda reached out and grabbed her arm. Please, Emma, I'm begging you, Linda said. Her voice cracked and fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. Emma looked down at her mother's hand and felt nothing. No guilt. No urge to fix the problem. No sympathy. It was strangely freeing. Ask Mary to help you, Emma said, gently pulling her arm away. Then she walked out of the cafeteria without looking back. 6 months later, Emma heard from a distant relative, one of the few she hadn't blocked, that her parents had sold the house. They had moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment across town. Mary never offered to help, claiming she couldn't afford it because of the kids' expenses. 2 weeks after that, a letter arrived in Emma's mailbox with no return address. Inside was a handwritten note from her mother. The words were sharp and bitter. "We lost our home because of you. You destroyed this family. I hope you're happy." Emma read it once, then dropped it straight into the trash. The truth was she was happy. She was working normal hours now, picking up extra shifts only when she wanted to. She had taken her first vacation in over 2 years. A week at the beach with no phone calls or stress. She had savings in her account, new clothes in her closet, and a reliable car in her parking space. She was dating someone new, David, a kind and thoughtful physical therapist at the hospital. He had no idea about her family drama and she liked it that way. Her life was hers again. She filled her time with friends, hobbies, and small joys she'd once been too tired to notice. Emma had learned something important. Being related to someone doesn't give them the right to use you. The people who truly care will never treat you like you're disposable. And as she sat in her clean apartment one quiet evening, with dinner cooking on the stove and David humming softly in the kitchen, she realized she didn't miss her family at all. She had built a new one. One that valued her for who she was, not for what she could give.